Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at Jonny Lipsham Studios.co.uk here in the southeast corner of Scotland. Scotland being the capital of the UK, also being the capital of the world, and the capital of the solar system, the capital of the galaxy, and everything else. So that's just not even up for debate. It's a matter of fact. Hello everybody, I hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to tonight's show. As usual, Sunday Night Live, for those of you that have never been and have never seen this show before, you can by all means check out the other 380 something other shows that are in the playlist for Sunday Night Live. Because I've been running this since 2017, pretty much every Sunday. There have been a few Sundays where there hasn't been one, where I've been on vacation or something like that. But for the most part, we have had a show for pretty much every Sunday since sometime in the summer of 2017. So it's been going a long time. And essentially this show is all about Studio One. And then after that, more broadly, it's about recording, mixing, mastering, that kind of stuff. So we deal with those kind of questions. This is a Q&A show. So this show depends upon your questions. If you have questions about using Studio One, or you have more broad questions about recording, mixing, mastering, all in the context of a home studio, this is the place to be. And if you are brand new and you can't ask a question because the chat is in subscriber mode only, then the solution to that is to become a subscriber. So please hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. And then if you select the all notifications bell, that would be a good thing to do as well. That way you get notified not only of this show, but my other show, which is on Wednesdays, which is all about songwriting, composing, arranging, music theory, that kind of stuff. We deal with that on Wednesdays. That show is called Songwriting Simplified, and we do that at the same time, 6 p.m. Central. It's just on a Wednesday and not on a Sunday. So we do 2 live stream shows here every week. And then, of course, I have tutorial videos, mostly covering new versions of Studio One when they come out. But I also have some mixing tips and that kind of stuff on the channel as well as a series for basically getting into Studio One from scratch. Now, admittedly, I did that series probably nearly 10 years ago in Studio One version 3. However, the principles that are taught there are pretty much universal to every version of Studio One that there has been ever since. It does predate the subscription, obviously, so there's no references to that in the entirety of that series, especially when it comes to activation and that kind of stuff. But it does take you all the way through downloading, installing, activating, and then getting into the bare bones basics of recording, and then getting into mixing, and then there is even a section on mastering as well. So if you are totally brand new, it's a good place to start. That playlist is called Studio One from Scratch. And I do plan, by the way, to do an updated version of that series, covering all of that for Studio One 7. But really, when that happens will be down to when I have some available time to make that series, because making those kind of videos does take a long time. And so I need to be able to devote a protracted period of time to being able to do a series like that. So if you are new and you would like to see an updated version of that series, please do let me know. I would appreciate that. And the more people that want that, then the more likely I am to make that series and get it up there for you guys, so that you've got something that's a bit more current that deals with the bare bones basics of Studio One. So like I said, this is a Q&A show, so we will get started on that. But the first thing we need to do is see who's here and who was first one in the door. First one in the door was Billy Morgan, as we should all expect by now, because that's kind of what he does. He's pretty much always first. And then Goldberg is here as well, over in Austria, which is awesome. Glad you're here. And hot on his heels was Mark Bergstaller. Hi, Mark. It's been a long time. I'm glad to see you again. Welcome back to the show. It's been a wee while. Dwayne is here as well. And we got Carl Trajuziak. We've got Matt Cochran here as well. And we've got Ron the Keyman. And we've got Robert Booth, Bobby Booth. Bobby Booth has the unique distinction of having been at every single one of these shows all the way back in 2017 to now. He has pretty much not missed a single show. So if you have any questions about how these shows work, what they're about, Bobby is the guy to talk to, because he attends every Sunday night and every Wednesday night show. Bobby is a legend. He is one of my earliest and most loyal and most dependable supporters, and I'm very, very glad for him being here. And still turning up night after night, week after week. Bobby, thank you very much. We got Alpha Amiga here, and we got Daryl Harrison. We got Dave Barslow here as well. And we got Don Oliver here. We got Just Bob is here as well. He says he's finishing up a show with his wife, but he will be here when he can, which is awesome. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for your support. Bob actually quite frequently emails me with some fantastic long-form questions. So yeah, Bob, thank you very much for your help and your support as well. A big thank you to all of those whose names are in blue with a wrench next to their name. They are my moderating team. And they are all fantastic. Thank you guys for being here and helping keeping everything flowing and everything moving smoothly. For the most part, actually, since we've been in subscriber mode only, we don't tend to have any troublemakers here, because troublemakers don't like to subscribe. So, guys, thank you so much for being here and being a great help and making sure that I don't miss questions. So thank you for that, guys. And we got Dave, who is also known as Bops NY, is here as well. Dave, good to see you. All right, so we are through all of the general introductory nonsense. Just on a side note, if you're wondering why I'm maybe a little bit low key, a little bit low energy, I've had a phenomenally busy weekend, really, really busy, and I have probably overdone it. And so I am feeling like I have run out of gas, and yeah, probably feeling a little bit nauseous if I'm telling the truth. So I'm actually trying to concentrate on not vomiting at the moment. So but I don't want to miss doing this show because I love you guys. You guys are the best. So please have some patience with me. And I apologize if you think this show is a little low energy. It's because it is. I have run out of gas. But I'm going to try my best to get through your questions and try and make it through to the end of this hour. And then I'm probably going to go and stick my head in the toilet, I think. Okay, so Alpha Amiga has the first question of the evening. He says, when entering notes through the piano roll, sometimes when I click, instead of getting the note, I get the pencil tool and the new Notes velocity is adjusted, not what I want. It seems to be I have to click to the right hand side of the note position. I can't work it out. That's a new one on me. It's as if the pencil tool is stuck to the note, but if I click in the magic spot, then the new note just appears. It's frustrating. Okay, well, this is something we can test. Can we enter some notes in the note editor without there being an issue? Now, caveat here. Alpha Mega hasn't told us which version of Studio One he's using. I am using Studio One 7.2, so which is the most current version of Studio One, very, very recently released. But we are going to test this theory. So I'm going to create a new song. If you just bear with me here. So, and you don't need to see me making a new song, so I'm not going to show you that just yet. I don't need that open. So let's just go and grab presence, because presence is nice and easy, and we'll do piano. And we'll do this one. And we'll change the color of it. It somehow, I don't know why it does this. It defaults every instrument track to blue. I don't know why it does that, but it does. All right, so let's go over to the screen and put my little camera in the corner, and we will double click here. So Alpha says I'm in 7.2, but was getting the same thing in version 6 as well. This could be a settings problem for you or a preferences problem, depending upon whether you're on Mac or PC. As you can see here, I'm on Windows 11, recently upgraded to Windows 11. So if you're on a PC and you're on Windows 11, then this will be a valid test. However, if you're on a Mac and I can't reproduce it here, it's going to be hard for us to tell whether it's just not a thing, or maybe it's not a thing because I'm on a PC and the issue only occurs on a Mac. So this will be another variable to consider. Okay, he says he's on Windows 11. All right, so we have pretty much most of the bare bones basic conditions to make this a fair test. We're both on Windows 11. We're both running Studio One 7.2. So let's double click this event here. And this opens up the note editor. And so in order to enter notes, see, I don't have the pencil tool. And I've got the extended tool set here. So if I select the pencil tool, okay, that seems to have worked just fine, and it hasn't adjusted any of my velocities. This might require zooming in. Yeah, I don't have the ability to zoom in, unfortunately. What I can do is I can raise this up and I can adjust the data zoom so we see some bigger notes. I can do that. But as you can see, entering those notes worked like a charm. So let's just undo all of that. So all of those notes now go away, and we'll just double check that this is the case. I'm just going to quickly go back up to the question. When entering notes through piano roll, sometimes when I click, instead of getting the note, I get the pencil tool. Well, when you click to enter a note, you need to double click if you're going to do it without the pencil tool. And that seems to be working. So if you double click, then yes, you will get notes entered. If you single click, nothing will happen. See, if I single click, no notes get entered. So if you double click, you will get notes. But really, probably the best thing to do is actually just select the pencil tool. And then entering notes is just really straightforward. And as you can see, I've not been able to reproduce this issue at all. Now notice we are in freehand mode here. I've not actually tested whether this works on entering note. No, it doesn't. So it doesn't matter whether you're in freehand or not. Entering notes is just entering notes. The freehand thing And that sounded like very much the start to Giant Steps. Actually, let's play that. Yeah, it's the first 4 notes of Giant Steps. That was most unexpected. I just randomly clicked and it made the first 4 notes of Giant Steps, albeit with the wrong rhythm, but certainly the notes were correct. Sorry, that has just entertained me. So there we go. Now we complete the sequence. Albeit with all the wrong rhythms. But as you can see there, I could enter in notes without an issue. I'm not selecting the pencil tool, just using the regular pointer. Well, as you can see there, without the pencil tool selected, hang on, my chair appears to be stuck on my mat, my plastic mat for protecting my carpet. All right, so let's do this without. So in order to get the notes in, you got to double click. Okay. But notice how none of the velocities changed. They were all set exactly the same. I didn't change any of those. So in order to enter notes without having the pencil tool selected, you have to double click to get the notes in. Single clicking won't do it. Let's see. Johnny Coltrane. Alpha, that's really funny. That's funny. I like that. So yes, I think Just Bob has a related thing here. It says we can open up a wave file and move it up semitones up down by 12. Are some instruments more prone to artifacting? Okay, that's a separate question. I'll get to that one in just a minute. Because you've raised a really important point there, actually, Bob, about transposing audio wave files. Because yes, there will be some artifacting. But as you can see here, I cannot reproduce this issue on Windows 11. I'll have to see if I'm single or double clicking. Okay, there you go. All right, so Alpha, I cannot reproduce your issue, and I'm sorry about that. You know, I basically tried to follow what you said was the issue and how you're able to make the issue happen, and I tried to follow that as closely as I could, and I'm not getting any strange velocity changes or anything. Now notice when you double click, did you see that? The pencil tool does appear for a second. That's by design because you are entering a note. So the pencil tool is being temporarily switched from the pointer tool and then it goes back again. It has to do that because the pencil tool is what draws things in. Okay? So notes won't get added without the pencil tool being used. That's just by design. Okay? So you will see the little pencil tool appear when you double click. That's definitely a design thing, and we've probably just written something that may sound a little bit like minimalist music, which also happens to be either an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth, depending upon your outlook on life. If you're a positive kind of person, then you're going to see this as an augmented fourth. If you are maybe a little bit more introverted, maybe you'd think of this as a diminished fifth. But either way, this is a tritone. So if I'd put in like an F or an A flat here, we would have ended up with an A flat 13 chord. But we didn't. So these are the notes we have. Velocity is the same as attack. Not quite. Velocity is not the same as attack. Velocity is the strength of the note. It's not the same as attack. But you're kind of close. Attack basically is when we're talking about MIDI, attack is the onset of the note, you can adjust that parameter so that the note basically fades in. But velocity is to do with the strength of the note. So the velocity could be 100%, or which is what Studio One calls it. Studio One calls it 100%, but really velocity values in MIDI tends to be 0 to 127. So if your velocity was full velocity, which is 127, you can still have a fade in on the attack by having a slower attack. So the note has a slower attack, but it still is full velocity. So in MIDI, which is what we're dealing with here with note data, then attack and velocity are not the same thing. They are related, but they are not the same thing. But that's a good point that you've made, though, and is often actually misunderstood. Okay, Alpha says, I'm using a trackball which has its own software, may be an issue. Okay, yes, I'm just using a regular mouse. It is a gaming mouse. It's a Logitech gaming mouse, but it is a gaming mouse, which my son gave me because he got a brand new one for his birthday, and I got his old one. And it's one of those mice that changes color. So it basically just cycles through all sorts of kind of colors whilst it's just sat here, which is great. Because when my hand is on the mouse, I don't see the colors. So kind of what's the point in that? I don't know. But anyway, it's possible that your trackball is maybe causing the issue. And he says, I may be clicking and dragging inadvertently. That is entirely possible. Especially if you're using a trackball where you actually have to depress the ball to make the click. There are some trackballs where you do that. You basically push down on the ball and it makes the click. Whereas most of the trackballs I've seen, they actually have a separate button. So you move the mouse using the ball and then you tap the click button to click on the item. But if you're using one that you actually push down on the button to make it click, then it's possible that by doing that, you're actually slightly moving the ball either forward or backwards or sideways or something, pitch or yaw, something like that, when you are depressing the ball, in which case that might be where the issue is. And it would be worth testing for sure. But if that's the case, then yeah, I'm not going to be able to reproduce that because I don't have a trackball. But there we go. Could not reproduce that issue, unfortunately. But it's a good question. And it was well worth checking out to see if it was actually an issue. All right, let's see. I'm going to go back up just a wee little bit here. Just Bob says we can open up a wave file and move it up semitones up down by 127. Are some instruments more prone to artifacting than others? Oh, sorry, 127. That's not 127. That's 12 with a question mark. And for some reason, my brain turned that question mark into 127 because I was going to say there are not 127 semitones in an octave. There are only 12 in equal temperament. Are some instruments more prone to artifacting than others? Live capture versus direct in moving up down semitone. It's not that they're more or less prone to artifacting. If you move audio up or down, what you are essentially doing is you are adjusting the formants as well as the actual waveform. And by doing that, when you pitch it up or pitch it down, you can end up not only adjusting the formants of the sound, but also you can end up actually adjusting the harmonic series of that pitch. Because you have to understand that every pitch contains harmonic overtones. Most of them we don't hear because the fundamental tone is the strongest tone. So therefore, For the most part, that's what our ears are drawn to, and we just ignore the harmonic series overtones because they're not relevant. So the brain does that. It filters out that not necessary information. However, when you actually start adjusting things in pitch, up or down, that harmonic series gets shifted up and down as well. And so when that happens, you can change the values of the harmonic series. So you can actually adjust the overtones. And what this can do is this can turn even harmonics into odd harmonics and odd harmonics into even harmonics. And it can also create an imbalance between the intervals between harmonic overtones. For example, some harmonic overtones are things like a fifth or a third above or below the fundamental tone. And as I said, you don't tend to hear them because they are weaker in volume and they basically get swallowed up by the fundamental notes. So you don't tend to hear them. However, if you look on an oscilloscope, something like that, you can see the whole harmonic series. And you can filter out the fundamental tone, just be left with just the harmonic series for that pitch. And you can see all of the harmonic overtones. Now, here's the thing. Because of equal temperament, we have done this to the harmonic series. We've actually squished it a little bit to make it fit so that every semitone between each semitone across the entire keyboard, across every instrument from top to bottom, from lowest note to highest note, because everything conforms to equal temperament, that harmonic series has been squished so that every semitone is exactly equal. So basically the interval here, hang on, let's put that on a piano sound. That is the same as it's exactly the same interval, whether it's way up there or down here. That's equal temperament. I know this is kind of a long way round of answering your question, but it's important because this is where artifacting comes in. Artifacting happens when you shift audio by a certain amount because the harmonic series gets messed up and the fundamental, therefore, changes in its timbre, changes in its color, and changes in its strength, and changes in its actual, it's not that necessarily that the fundamental is now out of tune. It's more that the other overtones around it are now stronger and they are overwhelming the fundamental tone. And when that happens, if those harmonics have been shifted out of tune, it can make the fundamental sound like it's shifted out of tune. And this is where you start getting the artifacting. And this is where things like guitars, pianos, electric pianos, voices, they can start to sound a little weird. Saxophones will do it as well. So there are certain instruments where artifacting is more obvious than others. So there are some instruments where you can get away with a much bigger distance in which you can transpose audio. The human voice is kind of limited to maybe plus minus 2 or 3 semitones. If you move it into 4 semitones and above, going upwards, what you'll end up with is the Mickey Mouse effect, plus it will be slightly out of tune. And then you'll go into Melodyne to try and correct that intonation. However, it's not the intonation that's the problem. It's the harmonic series overtones that are the problem. And that's where you get that happening. So there's really nothing you can do about it unless you have some editing tools that will allow you to correct the formants and the harmonic overtones. If you've got the tools to do that, and I think maybe some of the new RX11, RX12 suite has those where you can actually go and correct the formants and you can go and adjust the harmonic overtones. to make them more correct. If you don't have those, then yeah, there's not a lot you can do, and the best thing to do really is just keep that range in which you move things up and down nice and close to the original recording. So if the original recording is, for example, in G major, then you probably don't want to move it much beyond going upwards to B flat or downwards to E flat or E. Anything kind of plus minus that range is going to start to sound funky. It's going to start to sound weird. Good question. And a much more kind of technical sound kind of audio question, which is good. I like those kind of questions. Mark says that he has some questions about creating folder buses. So if you have a question, then please do get that in here. I'm not necessarily going to be able to guarantee that I can answer it, but I will try. And really, the person who is the expert in this chat for creating buses and folder buses is Carl Drajusiak, because he has not just folder buses, he has buses for folder buses, and he has buses for folder buses that are already bussed. So he has enough buses in his Studio One songs to run a municipal bus service. He could certainly do that. He says also the overtones are what allow you to differentiate between different instruments, even between similar instruments like two different violins. Correct, because if you have two violin players and you ask them both to play, let's say a C sharp on the A string, they will both put their fingers on the A string at ostensibly the same place. However, because it is a fretless instrument, one player might be ever so slightly sharp and the other player might be ever so slightly flat. And so this is good if you are recording a violin section, because you will have, 10 or 12 violinists that all have slight different variations of intonation. Why do they have that? Because surely you'd go, well, they know exactly what they're doing. They put that finger there on the A string, and then they bow on that string. Well, see, everybody is very, very slightly different, and everybody's perception of intonation is very slightly different. Violin players playing fretless instruments are constantly making intonational changes to make sure that, if they've landed slightly north or slightly south, they can adjust very, very quickly. Their ears are very, 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 very clued and dialed in. So they can make that very, very quick adjustment. So you don't even notice that they've made that adjustment for being slightly sharp or slightly flat. So they're all doing this, and they're all doing this at the same time. And, what is going to sound dialed into one person is going to sound slightly sharp or slightly flat to the next person. And so they're going to make slightly different adjustments. And now you've got 10 or 12 people that when they all play the same note, it sounds great. It sounds huge. It sounds really, really big and really, really fat, because you've all got those minute, tiny little intonational variations between this player and the next player, all playing the same note. So it's a good point there. And then, like you say, everybody plays their instruments slightly differently. So if you've got a clarinetist also playing the same note, and a flautist, a flute player, also playing the same note, their notes is again going to depend upon their tuning. Have they tuned their instrument exactly the same way as the violinists have? You're going to get some intonation variations there as well. Dave Barcelow says, I see your image, but I'm also getting a blurred image as the PreSonus one. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. If anyone knows what Dave Barcelow is referring to, please let me know. But as far as I can tell, everything is good. The picture should be good. So I don't know what you're talking about, Dave. I'm sorry. Plus the wood glue and everything else are all different. Yes, indeedy. Okay, Alpha's just tested entering notes, and he says, I only got the issue twice. I'll use the pencil tool from now on, not the pointer, and it's only single click too. Yes, exactly. The pencil tool is really great. You just go dunk, 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 and it can be very, very quick and very, very easy to enter notes. Cleon says everything is good. Matt Cochran says, use eye drops, David B. Oh boy. Let's not get into arguing. Yeah, I don't know why Dave is seeing my image and also a blurred image at the same time. And I don't know what he means by as the personas one. I don't know what he means. Because I'm not showing Studio One at the moment. The background does look blurred. Well, yeah, it's going to, because the lighting is focused upon me and not what's behind me. The wallpaper. Yeah, there is no wallpaper. Oh, you're talking about the Studio One background. Yes, that picture is actually deliberately out of focus. Yeah, that picture is deliberately out of focus. So don't worry about that. It's just a backdrop. And guess what, guys? You've been watching this show week in and week out, and you've never noticed that. Because I've been using this same backdrop that's behind my picture here. I've been using the same backdrop since Studio One 7 launched, because this backdrop here is basically the wallpaper for Studio One 7 that was launched, that was actually accidentally leaked by, well, not accidentally, deliberately leaked by some nefarious person who was a beta tester, got their hands on this particular wallpaper. Yeah, so yes, this has been exactly the same since October 9th last year. Mike from Peace Valley Audio is here. Mike, welcome back, my friend. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. Matt Cochran says needing a little more light. Well, maybe not. I've only got 2 lights. I don't tend to need more than I don't tend to need more than 2 lights. Really, so long as you can see me and I'm lit up. Now, if I put the lights off, you'll see the difference. Let me put the lights off. There. Now you'll see what a difference my lighting actually makes. Hang on, let me just make sure that's not made the camera go wonky. Yeah, it looks okay. So yes, the lighting does make a substantial difference. Now, do I need more filler lights? Maybe. Kyle says he's already a bit sunburned. I have been out in the sun, and no, I'm not burnt, but I have definitely gone browner. That's definitely for sure. But one thing you will notice is, if you're seeing that my face is a little redder than usual, that's actually a problem with my camera. It's not me. It's a problem with the camera. Basically, I upgraded to Windows 11 and didn't realize that this camera that I'm using is 10 years old and technically is not compatible with Windows 11. So, unfortunately, there are some things I cannot change. So I need to basically go and get a new webcam and replace the one I've got. Because yes, I am... it does make me look a little bit redder, that's for sure. What happened to the orbital light I had on the floor? Oh yeah, the one where we had lots of weird colored things going around the room. I still have it. It no longer spins though. I'll show you what it does look like though. Hang on a sec. Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference because it doesn't spin anymore. It used to spin and it doesn't anymore. But what that has done is that has lit up the back of the room maybe a little bit. But yes, this used to make like pretty colors on the roof and stuff like that anymore. But it doesn't do that anymore. It's basically the motor doesn't work. So I have that turned off. So there you go. Mike says, I think everything looks good. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. You know, especially coming from you because you're a photographer and, you know about lighting and that kind of thing. So Alpha Amiga says, you have sun in Scotland. Yes, we do. We actually do, believe it or not. It does happen. And let's just say this weekend on Saturday, it was the gala day here in my town. And it also happened to be the hottest June day in a century. The hottest June day in Scotland for 100 years. It was very, very hot indeed. Let's see what else we got here. Dave Barslow says, can you please show everybody how to invoke Splice? Well, there are spells and rituals that you have to do before you can invoke Splice and before the Splice spirits start to get excited sufficiently that they want to actually come and work with you. But Splice is actually pretty straightforward. Once you actually have it set up and working. The first thing I'm going to say, if you are having difficulties with the Splice integration, Splice have actually put together a bunch of really, really good knowledge-based articles that will take you through the step-by-step process of how to make it work. Now, I'm going to caveat what I'm about to show you with an important statement, and that is, I have a Splice subscription. So if you don't have a Splice subscription, you're not necessarily going to have everything that I am going to show you. But I am going to show you what there is like something that you do have access to, because even if you don't have a subscription, if you just have a free Splice account, you can get access to 2,500 curated sounds from the Splice library. The Splice library has something in the region of 5 million sounds. If you have a subscription to Splice, you have access to all of that. But if you don't, you have access to just this small portion. So I'm going to click on the Splice tab, and you can't see anything. Sorry about that. Let's go over here. Now, it's asking me to log in, so I'm actually going to just go back to the lounge so that I can actually do that. Because I need to confirm the machine, the code for this device, and I don't want you to see my code. So I have to be careful about doing that. And there we go. Done. Let's go back to the screen. So now I have signed in, and I didn't want to show you basically my information and the confirmation code, because if you have access to that, you can get into my Splice account. So once you are in, you will see these things here. You'll even see this thing here. This is called credits. If you've got a Splice subscription, you will have a certain amount of credits. I think it's like 100 credits per month. Now, I've let these build up a bit, so I've got nearly 1,400 credits. But if I was to click on instruments here, and let's say I click on drums and I click on view all, you will see that there are a bunch of buttons here. There's your library. Now, this is going to basically just show sounds that I have already used and dragged into Studio One. That's my library. Then there's this button here with the little Studio One logo and the word included. When you see that if you don't have a Splice subscription, this is the button that you want to click on. When you click on this, what will happen is this will filter results in the search. Okay. So you can see here there's like nearly 1.1 million results from just selecting drums. Okay. Now I could narrow this down to particular genres. So let's go and do that. Let's go and just do funk. And if I close that, now we only have 23,101 sounds. Okay. But if I clicked on this button here, this would then only show me results that are from this included bunch that you get with Studio One. It will also show you some sounds that aren't included. Why does it do that? Because they want you to subscribe ultimately. Because, you know, this is how these things work. You get a free bunch of sounds, but ultimately they want to encourage you to subscribe. So you may drag something in and it will tell you, hey, you don't have access to this because this is for subscribers only. And yeah, you may get a little bit upset by that. And I totally understand that if you do. But to be fair, there is a Studio One Splice subscription package that the good folks at Splice have put together. And it's just called Studio One X Splice. That's what it's literally called. And it's only $13 a month. Not a whole lot of money. With that, you get access to the entire Splice library. So if you want to have all of those things that only subscribers get, it's worth it, to be honest. Especially if you're going to use these sounds a lot. It's very well worth it. And I have actually used these quite a bit. So let's just play a few of these. Drum fill. Classic 70s disco, that. So let's say we liked this. Well, we can just go and grab this, and I can drag it into the song here. And it will download it. And there it is. Now, the first thing you need to do is turn it down a little bit, because it will clip if you're not careful. Now, that was unintentional, but I'm going to duplicate that just because I can, and I think this could be fun. Right, so I've turned that into a little kind of picking guitar thing, just because I could actually, okay, I don't need to do that. Go away, key. Thank you. So let's change the sound. Let's go to why can't I go to something else? Bass. Let's use disco just for the sheer fun of it. Is it going to present me with a whole bunch of? Maybe if we change that to just funk. And we'll change the key as well to A flat. There we go. Why the hell not? And so on and so forth. We could play with that all night, to be very honest. Let's see. Mike at Peace Valley says, I stopped paying for Splice. I have like 10,000 kicks, snare toms. Yeah, you've got plenty of stuff, so you don't need Splice anymore. That's fair enough. Cleon says I'm using co-producer from Output. There you go. That's another option. Just Bob says, tempting to buy a service is cool. No need to accept, especially since the free ones don't have commercial interruptions. This is true. Ron says, I think it's seeing the bass player's 30-second notes and detecting based on that. Detecting what? I don't know what you're referring to. Drop it down an octave. These thumps sound like Nucleus, bit of Knight Rider. Oh yeah, I suppose it does sound a little bit like Knight Rider, doesn't it? Mike says, I can't believe that works. Yeah, it kind of does. It's clipping a little bit, but it does kind of work. We ended up with something ultimately that works. And I would just, I would try and find some Fender Rhodes chord voicings to kind of put with that, to be honest. And it would hopefully actually work if I did that. Go up in the chat. Oh, okay. Just bought an MP3 file of What Is Hip into Studio One. I detected the tempo. It's recognizing the eighth notes as time signature at 206 BPM. It should be more like 103 BPM. Fix? Don't know. Actually, no, I don't know. When you do the tempo detection, make sure you're doing the tempo detection based on the quarter note. Maybe you've set that to eighth note. I don't quite know how you are doing the tempo detection. That's kind of maybe part of the missing part of it is I don't know how you're doing the tempo detection. But yeah, if it's recognizing the eighth notes as 206, then you could probably set that to halftime in the inspector. Probably there's an option. I think in the inspector there's an option to set it to halftime. That might slow the whole thing down to halftime, which means that What Is Hip starts to sound like What Is Hip Replacement. And that might be a completely different problem. I think the problem with that song is there's no real kind of 4 to the floor anywhere. There's not even on the kick drum to give the tempo detection something to latch onto as where the pulse is. So maybe it's a little bit confused by Tower of Power, and that would be okay because there's plenty of people that are a little, particularly if Dave Garibaldi is the drummer on the track, because his drum parts doesn't necessarily play the backbeat. He plays the and of 2 or the and of 4 or something where he doesn't actually play directly on the beat for some of his patterns, and so it might be struggling for that reason. But you're right. There's a lot of 30-second notes and a lot of 16th notes in What Is Hip. One of my favorite tunes as well. There we go. Oh, you right-click the audio to do it. Okay. All right. We unfortunately cannot explore this any further because we have run out of time. It is now 1 a.m. And like I said earlier, I'm actually feeling a little bit sick, so I would quite like to go and stick my head down the toilet, to be honest. So we will call it there. But anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me for tonight's show. I appreciate you guys a lot. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all your kind words and comments and questions and stuff. There's been some actually really, really good questions. So thank you very much, everybody. And like I said, there is a Studio One meetup that's supposed to be happening right after this, which will be the Louisiana Studio One meetup. I am hoping that Richard Gaspard is going to be hosting that on behalf of Presonus, but I don't know whether he's able to do it or not. So, but by all means, go over there and hang out and see if he turns up. If he does, great. If not, then I would just say, call it a night and go and, go about your own business. I'm going to go and flush my head down the toilet. I will see you all on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified. Good night, everybody.